locked in to the Sounds Like Fun podcast.
It don't matter underground or the mainstream. We taking over everything, American dreams. Make a move, long nights to the light beams. Urban Stone, we the motherfucking A-team. I go crazy on this track, man, I spit dope.
What's going on, world? Welcome to another episode of the Sounds Like Fun podcast. I'm your host, Serial Sensei. Before we get started, of course, I got to get the plugs off. As always, you can listen to this podcast, the Sounds Like Fun podcast, on the YouTube page. You can also listen to it on my SoundCloud page, where you'll also find the Dojo Talk podcast, which I co-host with the Anti-Cool, covering mixed martial arts and combat sports. Also, where you will find Road to the Oddball Chronicles, which is a series of podcasts that I'm releasing up to the release of my book, which, hintity hint, comes out November 12th. So by the time you hear this, should not be that far away, about a week or so away. So pre-orders will be in the description below. So check out that series. Get my book a pre-order for 99 cents. Would definitely appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Serial Sensei. Just type in Serial Sensei for everything. On Twitch, on WordPress, if you type in Serial Sensei in your Googles, you will find me somewhere. So somewhere in the interwebs, doing whatever it is I do on the interwebs. I don't know what I do. I just type stuff. But yeah, man. So had to get the plugs out the way real quick. But I'm just gonna jump right into it. I have a lot of notes I've wrote on this album. I don't want this review to go too long, but I did write a lot. So the album that we are going to discuss today, or that I'm going to discuss today, is Pieces of a Man by Mick Jenkins. So for those who don't know, Mick Jenkins is a Chicago MC, which shout outs to Chicago just as a whole have been really killing it this year in terms of hip hop. But yeah, Mick Jenkins is a Chicago MC. This album, Pieces of a Man, is a follow-up to his 2016 album, The Healing Component. He also put out a few EPs in between then. He had Or More the Anxious and Or More the Frustration. But this is like the next official release, I guess you could say, because the Or More series were kind of just like EPs. I guess they were kind of like throwaways or just kind of loosies or just a little something to tie fans over until he had like another official project out. But coming off The Healing Component, which I didn't realize there was such a divide over. Like, I didn't know, like, a lot of fans didn't. There seemed to be a split. Like, some people really enjoyed it or thought it was just kind of subpar. I myself, I love that album. I still play it to this day. I still go back and listen to, like, Strange Love, Daniels Bloom, Robert Ory, Fall Through. I listen to a lot of that album. Spread Love, I still listen to that album pretty consistently. So I really love The Healing Component, so I had been waiting for a follow-up album. It's been 2 years now, so I was really, really hyped for this. But the one thing I was just wondering before this album came out was, like, what kind of direction did he really plan on going into? Because if you listen to some of the singles he dropped, and some of them are loosies because some of them aren't on this album, like that track Bruce Banner that he put out. That was another one that he put out after Bruce Banner. But I just kind of didn't know where he was really going with this album. And I know he put out Understood as a single, but I actually didn't listen to Understood. I didn't hear Understood until this album came out. Because I kind of just wanted to save. I didn't want to spoil this album for myself, so to speak. Like, I saw he was releasing more music, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to just chill out. I'm going to wait till this comes out. I just want this to be a fresh, a fresh listen. So I want to say this album came out on like a Friday, and I knew I was hyped for this because I woke up in like the middle of the night, had to go to the bathroom, and like right before I went back to close my eyes, I opened up my phone, got on Spotify real quick, saw the album had dropped, and I just saved it. I was like, I'm saving this because I'm listening to this as soon as I wake up in the morning. So I get up, getting ready for work, and I just kind of have this on in the background. And to be honest, like off of first listen, I didn't really like it all that much. And I think it was mainly because it was just kind of background music. And the way this album is produced, there's not like a ton going on. So I was kind of listening to it, and you're nodding your head here and there, but I'm like, I don't really know about this. Like, nothing really like jumped out and grabbed me. But I was like, man, this is Mick Jenkins. I'm definitely not judging this album off of just one listen. So let me give this another spin. So first time, like I said, I was listening to it while I was getting ready for work, and I just had it playing from my phone. Second time, I literally played it again driving on the way to work, and it was like a light switch. Like, now it's just me, the road, and just this album, and now I can really hear it. I'm really paying attention to it because like I said, it's just me and the road and music. So now I can really hear it, and now like I'm instantly vibing out to it. I'm like, okay, this was the feeling this is the feeling I was waiting to have, from when I first listened to it. But yeah, so I really started to enjoy it the more I listened to it, like in the car. I was listening to it at work. And then eventually, with albums like Mick Jenkins, artists like Mick Jenkins, eventually you just got to have like a sit down, and you got to really focus on the album because, if you're familiar with his music, he's always throwing out themes. He's definitely a lyricist. If you listen to the Healing Component, you know that like that album had the whole theme of love. So, there's just a lot of themes and things to look out for when you're listening to an artist like this who puts out these albums that kind of have like these sort of somewhat concepts to them. So I really just wanted to sit down and give this like a real thorough listen. And man, yeah, after sitting down with this, man, I gave this bad boy a good 4 or 5 spins, man, like back to back to back. I found myself like going back to this project repeatedly. And I was just happy that it gave me that feeling that, like I said, the first time I listened to it, I was kind of like, eh. And then when I really sat down with it, I was like, yes, I got it. This this is the connection that I was waiting for, because now I can really sit and dissect with what's going on here. But to get into the album, Pieces of a Man, I mean, a lot of things jumped out. First, like the title of the album, Pieces of a Man, same thing as Gil Scott-Heron, his album, for people who know him, former jazz artist, musician, poet, all that good stuff. So the cover of the album with like the broken glass pieces on the ground. Yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, what is he's about to talk to me on this album? I don't know what he's about to talk to me about, but he's definitely about to talk to me. And the album opens up with Hair on Flow. And there are actually 2 interludes on this album called Hair on Flow. There's Hair on Flow, and then there's a Hair on Flow 2. And I think these are like the 2 most, they're only like skits or interludes, but they're kind of like the 2 most important tones, or the 2 most important like tracks in terms of if you really want to understand kind of what this album is about. Definitely give those a listen, even though they're just interludes. But Hair on Flow, the first one, is like this spoken word piece, and it really ties in together that Pieces of a Man theme, and the lines that really stuck out to me. And like I said, this is the very first track on the album, how it all starts off. What are we talking about concerning the man? Is a red hot case of ... dash, the remorse code, the damned if I know. ... dash means damned if I know. And the reason this has become a popular phrase in the black communities around the nation is because there are more and more things black people thought they had a handle on that they sort of seen slowly slip away from them. More and more things the black man specifically has kind of just let go. And I feel like those last few lines about things we thought we had a handle on and about letting go, I feel like that kind of just encompasses really what this album is about. This album is definitely deserving of the title Pieces of a Man. It's just a very honest and kind of intimate view into Mick Jenkins' like mind, like in terms of his thoughts, his viewpoints on certain things, in terms of relationships and friendships, observations from things he's seen other people do, to whether it be just like things in his country, things on the block, things with himself. It's just kind of like his truths. It's a really, I think, compared to the healing component, which, like I said, had this kind of theme of love and things like that. This is a much more personal insight into like who Mick Jenkins is, kind of just as a person. And this album is literally him just kind of laying it out in this very poetic, this very thoughtful, very intimate but raw and just honest way, in a way that he can. So that's really what I really pulled from this album. And there are a couple of lines on this project, I guess, to just start getting into some of the album. One of my favorite tracks, and a few bars that I think really encompass what this album is about. The track Reginald, really love the beat. Really has this like jazz lounge kind of beat. And Mick Jenkins really flows just really good on this album. But I love the line, "Don't spend too much time in mirrors. Reflections will get you caught up. Connections will get you brought up in conversation. You're basing everything you know about me from moments. I'm more of a compilation of compositions. It's complicated." And there are a few lines in this album where he mentions things like, I think even on Hair on Flow, the second one, at the end of it, he mentions about people are quick to, that when they see him in public, or they see things see things he does, or things that he may say, or even maybe not related to him, just people in general, you're only catching them in just these glimpses of time. But you have to you need to notice the real picture, the complete picture. And I feel like this album, Pieces of a Man, is him this is him like filling in those empty spaces that you don't get to see. Like, you're getting the other side of the story instead of just these glimpses. You're getting the moment that led up to the glimpse and what followed that moment, so you get the whole picture in its entirety. So I feel like that line really captured like the essence, I think, of what this album was trying to talk about, at least topic wise. But before I dive back into songs, because I'll definitely start covering tracks and other themes that he touched on, production on this album. Let me give credit to some people of the credits that I found. So we got Black Milk, Them People, OV and RIO, or I don't know if that's Rio. That's OV, and then is Rio and Nez. Nissim, Ben Hickson, K Tronada, D Lily, High Classified, Green Slime. I'm guessing this is Steelin' Drums. He spells it STLNDRMS. Alex Sawinski, and Bad Bad Not Good. So those are the production credits that I found. So shout outs to everybody who lent a hand on creating the sound of this album. I would say, compared to the healing component, this album is a lot more like stripped down. I think in some ways it makes it a bit easier to digest. Not even that like the healing component was like all over the place, but I feel like production wise, the healing component had a little bit more going on, I guess, so to speak. Pieces of a Man is definitely more stripped down. I think it moves at a bit more of a chill and slower pace. It's kind of bare, but it's still soulful, still jazzy, still has a hip hop vibe to it. At times it can be a little spacey, a little eerie, but overall it has this really stripped back kind of sound to it. And I feel like that was done purposely, because with these kind of like stripped back instrumentals, it kind of just lets Mick Jenkins just kind of do his thing. And I feel like since there's not like a ton going on beat wise, and it's not to say that any of these beats are bad or anything like that. The beats definitely do their job in lending to the feel of the track and like overall sound of the album. And I think like what the songs they're trying to convey, they match up really well. But the beats just kind of provide a backdrop for Mick to really do his thing lyric wise. And like I said, if you listen to Mick Jenkins, you know he's definitely a wordsmith, definitely a lyricist. So it kind of allows him to just shine vocally. And I think that makes sense, because I just kept thinking of the very first track, the Heron Flow, where he's doing the kind of spoken word piece. I feel like this album is kind of, it's almost like he's just in a room on stage, and maybe not like a big crowd of people. Maybe it's just like an intimate gathering of about 50 to 75 people. Maybe we're all just in this room, and he's just kind of on the mic, and he's just kind of getting his thoughts off, and just kind of sharing them and bouncing them off the rest of the room, and just kind of vibing with them. To me, that's the feel of what I got from this album. Like I said, it's very intimate, it's very honest. It's him really, like I said, unpacking his, I don't even mean to say baggage, but just unpacking just his thoughts and everything just over the course of this project. And he's really giving the listener kind of an inside look on the things that goes through his mind, immediately on the opening track, Stress Fracture. He kind of talks about him trying to like not crack under pressure. He's kind of like trying to hold this image together in the face of like his friends, his fans, and just people he has relationships with in general. Like they don't, he doesn't want people to see him crack, so to speak. He's kind of presenting this image, and I guess in a way like he wants to uphold it, and he doesn't want people to see that he has any like chinks in his armor, so to speak. Like immediately the way the song starts off, who do I run to? The papers in front of the pain that is subdue. They can't see me undo. They can't see me undone. I'm too lit right now. I'm big on the internet. Pretend I ain't into that. So like in the face of his fans, they may see him. They see him in a certain light, and I guess kind of behind the scenes, he's kind of like questioning himself. He's still going through things, but he's got to hold it all together. He's got to keep it together because he got fans he has to deliver to. He has people who are looking up to him, or whatever the case may be, and he's just trying to hold that image together. So right off the bat with Stress Fracture, you kind of get that insight into what is really going on inside of his mind. Gwendolyn's Apprehension, another really good track on here, and another one that I actually came to appreciate more. Shout outs to the Popular Demand podcast. I have to give them credit for posting this because I didn't know this when I first listened to the song, but this was actually the hook on this song is actually pulled from a poem by Gwendolyn Brooks. The poem is entitled "We Real Cool." Really enjoyed this song, and I like because this song is introspective, but he's also kind of giving game, so to speak. In the first verse, it seems like he's like talking to the youth, just kind of letting them know, like, I see what path y'all are on, and you think it's cool now, but it's not really what you think it is. But since they're kind of young, they're gonna disagree with him anyway. And I think he ends the first verse with disagree with the nigga, but they know you real. They gonna see for themselves. No, I told you so. Can't teach the young nigga. He don't want to know. Could be a flower. He don't want to grow. And then in the second verse, he kind of goes in on his own growth instead of looking at the youth. And it almost comes back full circle because, like I said, in the first verse, he's giving them game. And in the second verse, you kind of realize that he was in the same place they were. But he kind of, he grew as a person. He found his way out of that situation. He matured more. And so it just, like I said, the game runs full circle. He's seeing what they're doing and realizing, like, the situations you guys are in are pretty much not going to lead to what you think it will. And the only reason I know is because I was at the same spot you were in. But, the youth are going to do what they're going to do. And he's kind of saying, like, listen, man, you don't say I didn't tell you, basically. But I really like how everything came full circle in this song with the way, like I said, it was really honest. Like in a way, he can't really judge them so harshly because he was just not so far removed in the same situations that they were. So like I said, I really just enjoyed kind of the introspection on this album, just his honest outlook on things. Barcelona, another good track on here. Boy, he was rapping. And that's another thing I think that Mick did on this album that was really good. And the healing component is not to say that he was definitely rapping, but I feel like with the healing component, he was really trying to stick to that theme of love. And while he was still, being witty with wordplay, still having bars, I feel like this concept, in terms of just him kind of just being able to let out, his thoughts and his ideas, it kind of allowed his pen to flow more freely. So I think if I was to compare the two albums, I think lyrically this one might be a little better in terms of just his bars. Because I like I said, I think the topics allowed him to be more free with his pen, and tracks like Barcelona, I think really showed that, man. He was definitely rapping. A couple of tracks on here, he was delivering some bars, man. Dude is definitely dope with the wordplay. So Barcelona was really dope. He had a lot of other interesting topics on this album too. And another thing he did, his flows were really good on this album, man. He had a lot of good, even over these instrumentals, like I said, that don't really have a ton of going on. A lot of them are really stripped back. Like I said, on Reginald, he was flowing really good. On Plain Clothes, which is probably my favorite track on here, he really switches it up. He does this melodic, kind of catchy flow. And if there was one knock on this album, I would say that some of the hooks aren't like too memorable, but Plain Clothes, I think, for me at least, had like the best hook on here, because to me it was like the most catchy. And it's definitely one of those tracks that when you hear it, it's kind of like I don't say a sing along, but you'll definitely find yourself vibing out to it. And he, like I said, he switched it up to just this real smooth melodic flow to really match the beat, and he just kind of glides over it. And it's just a really, he executed that track really dope. And like I said, that was one of the better hooks on the album. And I just like how he was able to switch his flow up and do something a bit more melodic. It just kind of shows his versatility. And that was an interesting track too, theme wise, of him kind of talking about the life of fame, and him, going to all these fancy places and wearing these fancy clothes. And it was just another, you get a glimpse into kind of both sides of the life, I guess, of a quote unquote celebrity, and just a person of his status. Consensual Seduction, another good track on here. A very interesting track also, just in terms of the climate that we're in with the Me Too movement, and just with situations like that. He kind of made a song. The song is pretty much about him being, he's involved, pretty much with this woman. They're flirting. They seem to have like a good vibe going on, and he's pretty much ready to go in to get the goods, so to speak. But he's basically waiting for like a verbal cue, because he's trying to, he wants to make sure that like he's not really misreading her signals. Like maybe he thinks she's saying it's cool, but she might not really not be. So he's just trying to get he's trying to get the clear signal before he enters the driveway, pretty much. But that was just a really dope track. I think that was pretty much like the only track that kind of centers around like relationships. But I just thought, like, in light of the Me Too movement and things that are going on, I just thought it was pretty cool that he put this out at this time, because he really does go through those emotions of like what a man is thinking in those kind of situations. But in the back of his mind, he's like, I gotta wait until I'm waiting until I get the verbal cue, because I don't want things to be misconstrued, about what the situation is. And even in the background, he's really singing, "Say it out loud." So, yeah, man, that was just an interesting track. But I definitely enjoyed that. Man, it's wild. Just looking at the track listing, man, there aren't really any songs on here I don't like, and I just enjoyed how much he was able to address a lot of issues. Like I said, it's introspective. You get tracks like consensual seduction, talking about that topic. I like the track Ghost, where he's kind of talking about ghosting, just kind of like I'm out here, but you don't really see me that much, which I can definitely relate to because that's kind of where I've been at my entire life. The track, what was that track? Pull Up is a very interesting track where he kind of talks about how certain friendships have kind of gotten strained due to him like being an artist and how much he's working. I just thought that was it was a different look in terms of examining like friendships, because a lot of times you'll hear an artist rap about friendships and it might just kind of be about oh, they're not friends with me because oh, y'all just hating, like, oh, you got money and you're just kind of leaving us behind. But this is kind of a look at it from another angle where it's like he's just losing friends just based on the fact that he kind of works so much and he's out here trying to make music. He's trying to keep his career on track. So when he's out doing these things, it's like, oh, I got to catch a flight or I got to record a song. Like his priorities have kind of changed, and his friends kind of may take that as, oh, he's not really, because of how much he's working, they think he's kind of blowing them off. But he's like, dude, I got to do this. Like, this is my life now. So I thought that was really, really dope. Like I said, he did a really good job on this album of just touching so many facets of life, whether it be, like I said, personal insight or just things he's just kind of seen out in the world, or like I said, or just in terms of friendships, relationships. He really, really, really touches all angles. And like I said, it all goes back to that title, Pieces of a Man. This album is literally that. Like, this is him just connecting the dots on everything. Like, people may have said this about me, or you may think X, Y about me, but here it is. Here is what I'm saying it is. This is like my truth. This is my version, so the story doesn't get misconstrued. Like, this is what's going on in my head. And I'm just gonna lay this out for all you guys to listen to, and you can feel about it however you want to feel about it. But this is what it is. And he does it while like I said, dude is no slouch on the mic. He's really good lyrically. He made this an easy digestible listen. Like I said, is not so heavy on that love concept, which some people said on the Healing Component was like a bit preachy. I think this album is much more direct. Like I said, much more digestible. I think if you weren't a fan of the Healing Component, but like you still like Mick Jenkins, but maybe you were just kind of like 50-50 on that album, I think you'll enjoy this a lot more. I would believe so. But like I said, I love both albums. I don't know if I like this one more. It's kind of hard to compare these two because they're really different. Like, they're both kind of personal, but in different ways. Like I said, the Healing Component was more based on love, and this is more just of a personal, just kind of insight into Mick Jenkins. So in that way, they both have good content, but they're both different just in terms of delivery. Like I said, this album is way more direct, and I think a little bit more raw than the Healing Component was. But they're both, I think, great in their own respective rights. It just kind of depends on your, I guess, your perspective or like your preference to whether or not you would enjoy Pieces of a Man more than the Healing Component. But yeah, man, I got the track list pulled up, and there's not really any tracks on here I don't like. Like Gwendolyn's Apprehension, Soft Porn, where he just kind of talks about just kind of his naked truth, so to speak. Yeah, Ghostface on the album. like on the track Padded Locks, he was rapping on that one too. That's another track where he was definitely letting the bars go on Padded Locks. But yeah, man, like I like pretty much everything on here. Even the interludes, like the Heron Flow 2, I kind of like how when that interlude ends, it has this kind of dope musical piece, and I really like how it really leads into Plain Clothes, because the last line of Heron Flow 2, once again, I continue that theme, but like I said, it's literally all throughout this album where you hear him talking about, people see just pieces, but you need to see the whole picture. Heron Flow 2, the last two lines are, how is it that we've come to quantify the whole of a man only by what he looks like in the light? Well, ... diddy ... dash, which means damned if I know. Which he explains in the first Heron Flow. But yeah, man, this album is constructed really well. It's executed really well. Definitely one of my favorite albums this year, without doubt. I actually just officially bought this on iTunes today because yeah, I had to support this album. Is really dope. Like I said, just overall, this is you in a room with Mick Jenkins with a small intimate crowd of about 50 people, and he's just kind of on stage and just this very poetic, way he's just kind of letting his thoughts just fly out there, and he's really just, like I said, he's giving you the pieces of himself. He's letting you know his thoughts, his theories, and everything in between, everything that entails. He's just kind of throwing it all out there. So I'll just get into some of my favorite tracks, because I've been talking about this for a while, but this album's dope. Like, this album is really, really well put together. I love the personal touch that he added on this. But to go to some of my favorite tracks, let me pull up my notes. Plain Clothes, which I mentioned earlier. Like I said, I just love the feel of this track. I love how melodic it was. The instrumental was really smooth. Like I said, the one knock I had on this album was like some of the hooks weren't that great in my opinion, but this was definitely one of the better hooks, one of the catchier hooks. So Plain Clothes is definitely a favorite. Stress Fracture, which is the opening track, like I said, right off the gate, you get him talking about his vulnerabilities, and just you get this image of him just trying to hold it together. And in terms of, his fans may see him one way, or they see what he has, and people see his status, but he's still going through things, but he's just trying to keep it all together. Gwendolyn's Apprehension. Like I said, appreciated that song much more when I found out it was tied to a poem. And when you read the poem, it's really just kind of an extension of that, but Mick kind of extending it and putting his own, kind of twist on it. So Gwendolyn's Apprehension, dope track. Barcelona I mentioned earlier. Love that track. Love the bars on that track. Couple dope lines, man. These niggas running around with scissors headed straight for the plug. Mogul talking business, moving at the pace of a slug. Left the trail, had the bell, knew his heart wasn't in it. How you up banger, then catch Parkinson's with it. Like, Mick is talking on this album, man. He's talking on this album. Like, don't let this like the smooth kind of really like laid back, like intimate vibe kind of fool you. He's talking on this album. Reginald is definitely a favorite. Really just kind of glided over that beat. His flow was just so, he weaved just in and out so perfectly on that beat. Understood, which I think was a single. I love like how the drums had like this kind of like slight dirty touch to them, but the beat was still kind of smooth. And I like that hook too. That was also one of the better hooks on the album. But nah, man, this joint, this album. Man, I've been talking for a while now. I didn't realize how long this review was. But like, it's songs that are on here that I didn't even really get to mention. Like, U-Turn was dope. Like, there's not a song on here that I don't like. Some I'll return to more than others, but I can't really say there are any songs on here that I don't like. Like I said, overall, man, it's just the sound of the album kind of stripped back, a little slower, a bit more of an intimate feel to it. But lyrically, dude is Mick Jenkins is definitely touching on real topics. Like I said, it's very introspective, reflective. It's him letting all his thoughts out. It's him, like I said, this is him giving you the entire picture instead of you just catching like glimpses and snapshots. This is the entire picture, so you get to see the entire frame. Now you know what his truth is. So now you can judge. Now you can judge. Now you have the entire picture, so to speak. So now you can make your judgment instead of just trying to piece things together just off these little small glimpses and clickbait lines or whatever it may be. Now you're getting the entire honest and truthful picture, delivered from his perspective. So Mick Jenkins, Pieces of a Man, everything you loved about Mick Jenkins, if you're a fan thus far, is here on this album. Wordplay, bars, concepts which he's able to just he definitely has a talent for pulling off concepts. Whether it be, like I said, this concept isn't really a story. It's just kind of a theme that runs throughout the album. And he's able to do it in various ways and still make it, fun and easy to listen to, but, still showcasing his skill set as an artist, as an MC. Yeah, man, this was what I wanted from a Mick Jenkins album. Wasn't sure what I was going to get leading up to this. But like I said, after I get his bad boy about 5 or 6 spins, yeah, I'm very satisfied with what I got. Mick Jenkins just adds on to the MCs from Chicago who have just been bodying rap this year. Like, Chicago is like undefeated with rap albums this year, man. They've really, really, really just been killing it this year. So shout outs to Mick Jenkins. Shout outs to all the rappers from Chicago who just, I don't know what's in the water over there, but y'all are just putting out some really fire projects this year. But nah, man, Mick Jenkins, Pieces of a Man, food for thought, food for soul, food for life. Give this joint a listen. And that's all I got, man. So this has been another episode of the Sounds Like Fun podcast. I'm your host, Serial Sensei. All relevant links to where you can check me out are below, and be sure to pre-order my book, The Oddball Chronicles, which will be released November the 12th. So by the time you hear that date will be coming up. Only 99 cents. Support your boy. But that's all I got, man. Thank you guys for listening. Definitely give this album a listen. Go check it out. And until next time, I will catch you guys later.